Hi everyone, Dr. Remy from Pain Free and Fit. Today, for those of you with spondylolisthesis in the lower back, L3, L4, L5, S1, we're going to be talking about a great rehab exercise for the abdominals known as the standing ab chop. Hope you enjoy. So standing ab chops is one of the great exercises. It's more of an advanced exercise that I use with my patients while rehabbing them with spondylolisthesis in the lower back at L3, L4, L5, and S1 because it targets 3 planes of stability. It targets stabilizing yourself in both flexion and extension plane, the lateral flexion plane, and the rotation. Remember, spondylolisthesis, like any low back pain, is going to be aggravated when your range of motion is too great in one plane of motion or another, depending on your unique body mechanics, your muscle asymmetries, and your stability issues. If you haven't yet done so, check out the painfreeandfit.com website. We have a free body analysis to help you determine what your neutral spine is, what your safe position is. Do you need to hold your hip down a little bit on one side, avoid rotation on one side, engage a multifidus muscle or an overactive, let's say, internal oblique muscle, an overactive lat muscle? Do you need to wake up the glutes? You need to know these things before you do any exercise, including this standing ab chop, because you want to make sure that the exercise is tailored for your unique spinal condition. Without so, you're just doing generic exercises, which many times is only strengthening the abnormal mechanics, thus strengthening the pressures and the deleterious forces that stress the lower back and aggravate spondylolisthesis. So today we're going to be talking about the ab chop because it's going to help me, let's just say I'm going to use myself as an example, it's going to help me prevent my tendency to left laterally flex, meaning raise my left hip up or lean to the left, which aggravates my back pain versus the other side. It also is going to allow me to avoid extension, leaning backwards, which aggravates my low back pain. But there's also a rotational component, a twisting component. If I had, let's say, back pain that's aggravated by twisting to one side with either my torso or my pelvis, it helps me to lock in a neutral spine and avoid that. So this is not a beginner's exercise. Once you've learned neutral spine and started training abs and other things like planks, like bird dogs, like curl-ups, like straight exercises for the abs against resistance, this is going to be a more advanced version once you understand how to hold your body, that you're going to now incorporate 3 planes of motion of stability to prevent back pain irritation and strengthen your ability to keep that neutral spine. So here we go. We're going to take a band and we're going to loop it up and behind us to the side. If the band was on the same plane as I'm standing, I wouldn't have that resistance from my abdominals. So I want it to be slightly behind me when it's up to the side. From the beginning, you want to use a thin band. As you increase, you want to use a thicker band. Remember, for abdominal rehab for spondylolisthesis, we're going to be focusing on strength of the abdominals, our long-range plan, to help us avoid that extension or that leaning backwards effect that many times aggravates spondylo because it mechanically invites that vertebra to slide more forward. So strengthening the flexors to prevent extension will help to avoid that forward motion in spondylolisthesis. I'm going to take a sumo stance where my feet are a little wider than my shoulders. Feet are going to be angled out, and kneecaps I'm going to make sure are angled in the same direction as my feet are. Once I set my neutral spine, now for me, using myself as an example, I'm going to keep my left hip slightly down, I'm going to keep my tail slightly under, and I'm going to engage my left multifidus muscle on the left-hand side. We have had other videos that go through all of those things uniquely. If you don't know what your neutral spine is, again, go to that painfreeandfit.com website, take the free body analysis. It'll help you to start to understand how to place your spine, how to prevent pain, and how to learn what your unique tailored neutral spine is. If you're just using this exercise without thinking uniquely for your body of which muscles to emphasize, which motions to prevent, which position of your pelvis and your torso and your legs you need to put yourself into to do any exercise, you're only fooling yourself. You're going to be strengthening the dysfunctional mechanics in your body, which will only serve to further stress your spondylolisthesis condition with asymmetrical forces going across the facets and the discs and the soft tissues that are causing you pain. So any exercise, including ab chops, make sure you're in your unique neutral spine for your specific body. With that being said, I'm going to hold that band against my chest. Now, this is not a regular chop. If you know what a chop is, where you're coming down with your hands to one side. What we're doing is, this is an ab chop. We're going to lock our hands against our chest so that as I perform this exercise, by moving from my hips down and to the side, I am causing the band to stretch because my entire body as a unit is pulling it. I'm not pulling with my hands. I'm going to be focused on keeping my nose, center chest, and pubic bone all in a line. If I do this ab chop and my nose goes to one side further than, let's say, my pubic bone, or my pubic bone goes in front of my chest, I'm out of line. That's causing a twist. That's causing a rotational stress on my back. So it's very important as I do this exercise, I keep alignment between the midpoints of my body. As I come down, I'm not changing the lordosis or the curve in the lower back. As I come down to chop, if my rib cage moves in relation to my pelvis, I'm going to lose that neutral spine. So once I lock in my neutral spine, all the motion as I come down into the side with this chop is going to be from my hip joint. You see that? It's like squatting. If I can keep actually, if I just do this with a light band and hold with one hand, I can practice this making sure with my other hand there's no motion occurring in that lower back. It's all in the hip joint. So those are the tips I'm going to keep in mind. The other thing I'm going to keep in mind is because that band likes to pull sideways, I have to resist that sideways tension of leaning one way or another. So I want to make sure I keep an equal distance between the bottom of my ribs and the top of my pelvis on both sides. So let's do a couple reps and see what that's like. On the exhale, with that neutral spine engaged, I'm going to bend down and to the side and then come up. It's a very slight motion. You don't need a lot of it. I'm exhaling. And I'm thinking my nose, my chest, and my pubic bone all moves together as I squat and slightly turn it away from the band. Again, as a unit, pelvis through head. On the way up, the mistake is the band wants to extend. It wants to lift my chest up because that's the resistance. So I'm using my abdominal muscles not only to lock me in as I'm pulling down, which you'll feel, but as I'm coming up, I'm using the abs to resist that tendency to extend my back or lift my chest greater than my pelvis. Remember, with any abdominal exercise for spondylo, you want to emphasize that lower rib cage hunching down or crunching down and the pubic bone crunching up. That doesn't change your neutral spine. I'm talking about tension, not movement. This is not an abdominal exercise like a sit-up or a crunch where we're going to change that lordosis. It's a stability exercise, meaning that we're going to lock in our stable, unique position for our bodies and then maintain abdominal tension of tensing the pubic bone and the ribs towards each other without actually moving them, because we're maintaining the position that we set our spine in that's neutral and unique for all of us. So those are the tips. We're going to be thinking about rotational stability, making sure that the hips and the rib cage don't turn past each other. They stay as one unit. We're thinking about lateral stability, where I'm not allowing the band to lift my left rib up or hip hike on that side. And of course, we're thinking about front to back, AP stability, where I'm keeping that crunch on, not only coming down, but coming up. And that's it. I'm exhaling on the way down, inhaling on the way up. Now, with a lighter band, you can get a little bit more range of motion with the hips, but it's not necessary because, again, what we're training here is the abdominal stability. So how far down I squat is really a moot point. That has to do with my hip joint. What I'm really training here is the strength between my pubic bone and my ribs. So as opposed to many back pains emphasize endurance training, let's say for the extensor muscles, this is a flexion-based exercise for spondylolisthesis, preventing extension or the deleterious effects of leaning back. So we don't necessarily need a big range of motion or light weight. We want to work up to heavy weights eventually. Again, when you start this exercise, you don't want a lot of resistance, but you want to goal yourself to get there because it just takes a little range of motion with a lot of tension to have the training effect of strengthening the abs' ability to resist these three planes of motion. If you've enjoyed this video on spondylolisthesis and standing ab chops, subscribe to our channel. We've got a lot of great videos out there to help you. Questions or comments, write in. As always, I'll do my best to answer. Remember, if you're looking for a great tailor-fitted exercise program for your spondylolisthesis, go to the painfreeandfit.com website, check out our Fast Track program for spondylolisthesis. It has a full body analysis you can do on yourself to figure out what your neutral spine is, how to hold it, and then it gives you the exercises from beginning to advanced, exercises to include for your routine based on your unique analysis, and exercises to avoid and positions to avoid that are going to aggravate your low back pain. It takes you step by step in developing a self-rehab, self-management skill for spondylolisthesis pain so you get back into fitness and working out without aggravating your lower back. If you'd like to have an online consultation with myself, again, that information is at painfreeandfit.com. If you're having trouble with the Fast Track program or you don't know which way to go and you need help with designing a rehab program for yourself, feel free to contact me through the painfreeandfit.com website. I hope this video on ab chops for spondylolisthesis helps you with your chronic spondylolisthesis low back pain.